Hello, anyone in the room?
Oh, well.
Hola.
Hello.
Hello. I think the only one who's missing who's really important was Nils.
You were completely muffled then, but
Yeah, he didn't respond either in the chat. So do we want to discuss things without Nils?
We might have to if he doesn't make it.
Should we wait more or should we start? And do anyone know what should we discuss?
I mean, Nils also had some of the extra information he got from Leggy.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a hard meeting without Nils because Nils had a lot of information given and at least in his mind already a plan on how to approach GenHub. There is a small part of code is online, but I believe that there is also parts that's still only on Nils's computer. So I don't really know how to approach this other than the points I made in the chat around things like contributions, how to set things up with issues and PRs and stuff like that. But I don't really know from a content perspective on the roadmap for GenHub. I don't know if anyone else here knows anything about that. Otherwise, this is going to be a really difficult meeting to do.
I mean, I started working on something myself, like trying with profiles, versions, saving. And we also had something I remember on previous meetings mentioned something like having a config file that people with different builds or versions can use to basically set up a version from that with the necessary data or info. What I currently have set up is just a simple GitHub, like artifact getter, and then launching them But yeah, after that, still need to properly define what metadata is going to be exposed.
And Mauler or Xesson, I don't know if you're in the call. Do you know anything about this, or is this something we should really discuss with Nils and Leggy?
From myself, I've honestly not seen anything about the GenHub itself or been involved in any of the conversations around it. So yeah, I literally was only here because I was just sitting to see if anybody joined. I didn't realize there was going to be a meeting happening. That's as far as I go at this point.
No worries. I wasn't even sure if the meeting would go through because I didn't have any confirmations from Nils, but I just saw that there were a couple of thumbs up and people in Deaf Voice, so apparently my time suggestion worked. But without Nils or Leggy, I don't think this is really gonna work out unless Sesson has something that he knows, but I see he's going on a quick run apparently. I can say in Deaf Voice for a while, see if he comes back, but otherwise I can try to see if I can contact Niels or otherwise maybe Leggy. In my opinion, we need a little more acceleration on GenHub because I think the development of the community game patch is going faster than GenHub, and if we don't have a platform to release the game on, we're still stuck.
I think we should schedule a meeting next week and make sure that Niels, Leggy, and everybody joins, so that we know what should we do, and we also need a task list. What I see in the GitHub is not enough. It's more like a goals. It's not a task list of what we should do. I wanted to propose some stuff for the task list, but I thought maybe it's better if Leggy himself is here.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What I'll do in the launchy chat, I'll tag Nils and Leggy and see if we can get a meeting planned this week. For me personally, next weekend I'm going on holiday, but yeah, oh look, we've got Nils.
Oh.
Hello, Nils.
Yeah, first of all, sorry that I'm so late.
That's no problem. We're happy
Yeah.
that you're here, which means we can continue with this meeting.
Yeah, I guess you guys already talked to each other for 20 minutes. I don't know what you've already talked about. So
not really. I just jumped in 3 or 4 minutes ago, and we're mainly wondering because you were not here yet how we could set this up that you were here or that Leggy would be here. But now that you are here, we can basically start. So thank you that you could make it.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Arctic. I don't know if he's gonna come or not, because he was giving a lot of input about the launcher towards me. Yeah, we will see. Other than that, all I can give you guys today is, well, what Leggy told me. Basically, he gave me a task list like a month ago. Sadly, didn't have too much time to work on it. I worked a bit on the launcher. Yeah, but I think that's fine. He gave me a deadline to like the end of May. But if I'm correct, because he's expecting the first patch to also drop at the end of May or at the start of June or so. But I don't know if that's actually feasible or if that's going to work out. But yeah,
I think there are now a couple of developers, including Mauler and Xizon, getting very anxious because I don't think we're going to see a release the end of May.
yeah.
Yeah, I think with our previous chat, we were still considering a couple of months away for an actual first release based upon the game code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
autumn or Christmas was more like the timeline we're looking at this moment.
Yeah, and that's why I was a bit chill about the launcher so far, because I was thinking, I mean, all I can really create right now is pretty much just a Gen Launcher 2.0, and that's what Leggy basically told me to do, or Arctic did. The first version of the launcher is pretty much just, that a plain old launcher doing nothing but starting the vanilla games. And that's pretty much it. Leggy expects the launcher to replace GenPatcher completely later on, and sometime in the future it should also like get mod support. Yeah, so that everyone who creates mods can also just put them into the launcher and whatnot. And way later, all the networking stuff and whatnot. Right. I can post the tasks or the notes that Leggy gave me a month ago in the channel, in the launcher channel. Oh, it's not formatted.
I was thinking, just based upon that, do you think you might be considering the current game patch or the new code-based patch? For May, is what I mean.
Well, the thing is, right now we don't even have a concept of how we actually want to fetch the patch and how to download it. I mean, downloading it is the easy part, but right now I have to work with a lot of theoretical data and whatnot, because we don't know what the build pipeline really looks like, where are we gonna release the exes, or if we're just gonna host them on GitHub, or if we host them somewhere else. How we fetch the versions and whatnot, and get all that data and stuff, and then download it and replace the files and whatnot, and then the whole freaking file management on the other side as well. Like, a lot of stuff is only theoretical right now, and people just gave their input, and we don't really have concrete plans. But
Is there something we can do to make these plans more concrete? It's like what is needed to get clarity on all these processes?
Well, let me do one thing after the other. Let me paste the notes first.
Yeah, just kind of airing thoughts about releases. It's like on GitHub itself, we can create a releases section, and then you can make tags at various points in the actual repository for a release.
Yeah, I don't think it's just gonna be a problem to get from GitHub. I kind of have a working prototype of getting different build versions of like artifacts from the workflows, like having an API for that, and then you can search the workflows, download the exe, and then launch using the launcher.
I think there's a little more complexity to that. If I look at some of the commits that we've done, one is for example, backporting hotkeys for selecting all aircraft, for example, or fast forwarding replays in generals. So those are new features for generals, and these require also mapping in one of the INI files, and the one doesn't work without the other. So you have to a certain release of an exe comes also with certain INI files. So you also get version management of your INI files. And INI files are currently managed in the Gen patch repository, if I say that correctly.
And the other problem as well is that the current releases do time out after a while because they're only meant as temporary artifacts.
No.
Yeah, so if it comes to, we can always see if we can get some Amazon S3 or something like that to host things there permanently. But there's also a bit of version management, not just of the application itself, but also all the files around it, and possible things like texture updates and stuff like that. So I think in terms of grabbing the information from somewhere on the internet and then install it on the computer is a little more complex. Add to that you may want to be able to switch versions.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that like you gave you, Niels, but we're gonna break compatibility at some point.
Yeah.
And if you want to have certain replays, you have to replay it in the exact version.
So, first of all, because there is a hard requirement about the launcher being decentralized, so we won't have like a backend where we host mods and the patch and whatnot. The idea was that mod makers, and in this case, our patch or the community patch is supposed to be a mod, quote unquote, that it's getting hosted anywhere on the internet, and mod creators have to provide a certain file, be it a YAML or a JSON file, with all the necessary links towards the resources that are needed to play the game or to patch the game. It's basically just how Gen Launcher does it. It has like this library of mods in a YAML file with all the necessary links to download the big files and whatnot. And that's pretty much what Leggy and Arctic had in mind for the launcher as well, just without the centralized list of mods, basically. So that's a thing that has to be handled somehow. And about installing all that stuff and whatnot, Arctic said it would be nice to not use symlinks on Windows, because that's what Patcher Launcher does. And the idea was, if whatever mod you download, or if you download the patch or whatnot, it basically creates a subfolder in the CNC folder, in the generals folder, and whenever you start a mod or the patch and whatnot, it has to move all the necessary files into the main folder. And when you stop the game again, it has to move them back and all that stuff. And I already, I can see all the edge cases and whatnot. It's gonna be so much work to handle that. But for now, they said I should just ignore the mod support in itself. But at the same time, they are saying that this patch is going to be handled like a mod, so we kind of need the core framework of the mod support working. And yeah,
I think we should start with detecting.
Oh yeah,
First,
that's
we should
already
be able to
kind of
detect all possible installations, and then we should think of how we should, I don't know, manage mods and stuff like that.
Yeah, detecting the game is not the hard part. That's already working for Steam and the EA app. I already added that because that was like the only thing I could test. I don't have a CD drive in my PC anymore, so I can't really test installing the game via my CDs. I could download the games, sure, but I kind of don't want to go down that path, so someone else might have to test it or write that code if they want to.
We have a QA team, and I'm sure there are people in the QA team that still have their CDs, so we can ask that. We can put that question down.
Yeah. For all the different versions that exist, there are like so many versions of Generals and 0 Hour out there, and so many ways to install the games. And I have the source code of GenPatcher, and in GenPatcher, all this detection code is there as well. So I can basically use that, and I already did. It's not written in any language. It's basically just a bunch of AutoHotkey scripts, and I kind of have to translate that into C#. Yeah. So the game detection, it's not the hard part, and it's also it's already partially working, so that's fine on that. I think one of the harder parts is the whole managing versions of files later on, and yeah, and the whole UI. We don't really have a UI design, and I have to basically just build a UI I feel comfortable with right now, even though a lot of questions aren't really answered, like how should selecting a version of a game look like, and what is happening under the hood? What about add-ons to the game, like the Pro Control Bar, and how do we check if the version or the mod you're currently playing is compatible with add-ons like that and whatnot? It's really a mess right now, and no one really has a clear idea, so I have to just make things up on the spot.
Okay. Two things. One, I'm pretty sure we also have UI designers. I've seen people designing new UIs for generals and 0 hour, like for the menus. So again, we can ask there are like 200 people or so subscribed to the community page. That we can ask who has experience with UI design, and we can ask them to help out. I think most of them don't even know that GenHub exists, so we can ask there and help. I think, and that's taking a step back, and that's where my original question, at least in the channel, came back in. Is more on the process level. I think partially a question to me is like, Niels, what do you need from, or what work could you need help from other people, or is it at the moment where you want to do it mostly alone? And if you need help, we need to start setting up a couple of processes we need to put issues in. So we can assign people tasks. We need a piece of code review. I think that would be really valuable, and a contribution document with me, etc. Well,
Exactly. I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what to do, and the project doesn't have a structure. I don't know where to put specific codes that, for example, I came up with. And I'm also not really good with UI programming.
Yeah, so it's more of like if people are gonna help Niels, that we need to set up basically a team and the team processes around it. But that's a question for you if you want it.
Exactly. So initially, it was supposed that I create the base launcher on my own. Back when we first started talking about the launcher, the thing is, things kind of changed in my life, and my time is extremely limited right now in May. So I kind of have to somewhat step back from this role of creating the core version of the launcher on my own. So I pretty much just need someone that has more time coding the launcher pretty much. Yeah, I can still work on it from time to time. That's not it. That's still fine. I can still review. I can still consult. I can help wherever possible. But I probably won't be able to create the base version of the launcher on my own, and that's pretty much what I need. Just a couple people that can pretty much just create the foundation of the program with me. And for that, of course, like you said, we have to break down some things that are needed into tasks and whatnot. I haven't really done that yet, so that needs to be done for sure. No.
Okay, I think that's a very clear answer on the question. I think it's a very good answer. Is that we need to build a team. I don't think the responsibility of building the launcher should move from Niels to someone else. I think we just need to build a team where we have equal responsibility, like we're working towards in the game development as well, where there are multiple people doing really hard work and reviewing and stuff like that. And in my opinion, it just needs to be a team rather than a single responsibility. And then we have to set that up. We're definitely going to need some input from you, because you're clearly ahead in terms of what should be done, and what
you might think so. You might think so, but I'm pretty much just tapping around in the dark as well.
Yeah,
Because
but you were given a clear task, or I don't know how clear the
yeah,
task was, but you were given a task by Leggy,
yeah, exactly.
and it would be good to get that task out in like whether it's milestones or a roadmap. I don't
Yeah.
even know how GitHub works exactly on that. I normally use different software on these things. But then we can get issues or at least large issues going, and we can break those bigger issues up in smaller issues. Again, I don't know how that's possible in GitHub. I'm using Azure DevOps normally, which you can do features, story, task, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can have people work on little tasks,
Yeah.
review the code, and then piece by piece, we can put things together.
Yeah.
I am very familiar with C#, so I can definitely help in things like code reviews. I'm not familiar in XAML. So UI.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
that's fine. XAML is only needed if you really want to do some UI work.
Yeah, things
So
like that. So,
Yeah.
and I have project management experience, and I don't want to pull it all towards me because, like you, I have not so much time, and I also like working on the development of the game itself.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that's a little closer to home than the game. Let's put it this way. I have more experience with these type of projects than we're trying to fix EA code from 25 years ago.
Yeah. It's actually good because usually I'm a game dev. I'm not really a software engineer in that regard. I know how to write apps and programs, but I'm actually specialized in creating game code and not like actual professional software code. So
Okay,
yeah, that would be really helpful.
I'm good in starting startups.
I was going to say, I like how you've got a distinction between the two there, professional code and game code.
Yeah, no, I'm differentiating because, I mean, yeah, it's both C#, depending on, sure.
It's different. The language C# is the same, but using C# for an Android app or for a SaaS solution or for a Windows app or things like that is, or with Unity, it is different. Your phone looks exactly the same, but everything around this is. Someone who works in Maui is not just going to start in ASP.NET because that's a whole different world. It's about C#.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's like me doing embedded stuff compared to desktop applications. It's a very different world.
Yeah. So what would be good way forward from here?
In my opinion, I think we should first make like a simple build for QA testers. Then we can like already have an initial build.
I mean, if I build, you can already build the code, and all you get is like a window that tells you that the game is installed on Steam or not, or an EA app or not. So probably not really worth putting it into QA right now.
I mean, I'm in testing like QA testers for getting GitHub, and then that way they can test different versions of the game already from the GitHub as they pull requests. That way, it's also easier for QA testers to do testing and for the launcher to have people using it and then give feedback about it. And as we develop it as well, it's like they can also give feedback, or we can also get more experience on what the systems in place are.
Well, what I think what the first steps we should do right now are we have to set up all the GitHub stuff. I'm not really, I mean, I use GitHub a lot, but I'm not really using the GitHub features a lot. Arctic is a lot more experienced in that regard, so setting up actions or the whole building pipeline and whatnot, I kind of don't really want to do that. But I think Arctic is fine doing that. I just have to tell him. Oh, I don't know if someone else here is experienced in that regard. Let me see. And then, of course, and that will take a bit of time, a couple days, maybe a week, where we just have to define some tasks and whatnot, and that's pretty much it, I guess.
Yeah, it would be good to get some form of roadmap in,
Yeah.
and specifically something that works towards a minimal viable product (MVP). I don't know if you're familiar with the concept, but and that thing doesn't have to do everything because we also don't have a game to distribute yet. But at least you can show something that the base is there, and you have a clear like task that need to be done to get an MVP to work, and from there we can in steps expand that in all the features it needs to do. And so I think the main thing we need to think about is what should the MVP be able to do, and work towards that. Don't have to think about nice UIs or whatever. It's like, what do we want to have the minimum MVP to do? Release that to a couple of QA testers. See what the feedback is. Have them do it on Linux, Windows, everything. And then from there, we can work on UIs. We can work on expanding that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So basically, Leggy already sent me what he thinks is the MVP. Well, of course, we can't really distribute the patch right now with it. So we could strap that away, but all the other stuff that is in there, like self-updating the launcher, the launcher should be able to update itself, or it should patch the vanilla game via the gen patcher code and whatnot. And things like that we can of course already implement, or just basically launching the vanilla games, installing it for you if you have it on Steam and not installed, stuff like that, right? Just communicating with other programs to make it work. We can work towards that, sure.
For the minimum viable build, I think having a launcher first, launching the game, the software update for the profiles, and I think the simple of just being able to download an executable and then replacing it in the installation path. That way people can also launch different versions. Like that should be a simple, viable build that everyone can.
Yeah, I think that's a very good solution. Just the fact that you can launch a game from the launcher. It's very simple, but it's something that works. But we can work that out. We don't have to do that all today. We can work that out in the chat and in the issues.
Yeah, please, because I only have like 30 more minutes or so, and then I have to.
I think we should
go offline, sadly.
round off anyway. I think it's you have posted a few things. I have some clarity, and hopefully other people also have some clarity on at least where we can where GenHub is supposed to go towards to. I think now, and we'll discuss that in chat, to get at least the process going on. We need to get a few issues in at least high level issues in GitHub, and make a milestone for an MVP. And then we can see if we can start breaking things up in tasks and people can work on things. As well as a contribution document, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can set things like coding standards. We can enforce that with things like StyleCop. So we can work on these things so we have our framework for collaboration. And I think that should be the first priority. And then we can start working on pieces of code, whoever wants to. Yep.
Yeah, also, I think Leggy and Arctic, they have ownership, quote unquote, of the launcher. So they kind of have an idea what the launcher should look like and what it should do in the future. So if we have any questions about the launcher that aren't clear yet, they said they are fine if we just tag them and ask them. I'm just telling you guys that, so I'm not getting used like a middleman that that then just forwards messages towards Leggy and Arctic. You can just tag them yourself. Arctic is pretty active here anyways. So
yeah,
I think they have a clearer idea of what the launcher should look like and what it should do than I have.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
I think Hi, Xesson.
If I may put some notes. So there's there's a document here, implement patch loader tool. I probably have posted this a bunch of times already in various chats. So that was the original high level overview of what the launcher should be like. So originally I just called it patch loader, but that is basically what GenHub is supposed to be. And there I dumped some high level information of what I would have liked. So there are multiple things. I think there are also some outdated things noted down. But yeah, it's basically what you already said. Like, it would be nice if it can fix up the retail installation like GenPatcher does, right? And then basically the important part of this, it's supposed to be a decentralized launcher, right? So we don't want it to be a centralized launcher because we already have that. Centralized launchers are GenPatcher, GenTool, and GenLauncher. All these are centralized launchers, so to say, right? Because they, like, a GenTool installs some maps when you close down the game. GenPatcher has some control bars and also community maps and so on. And GenLauncher just has like a selection of mods and control bar and like things that they whitelist, right? So all these things, they are limited in scope and they are not what we need. So it's very important to build it decentralized. That means it needs to be customizable. So there needs to be a tech inside that allows any user to build like a package for it that they can put somewhere and that users can discover, and that the launcher pulls and then downloads all the relevant files, installs it on top of the retail game, and then just launches it all magic. User doesn't need to understand anything, doesn't need to know anything. It just works out of the box, as long as the publisher, which we are one publisher, the Community Outpost, but anyone else can be a publisher, individuals and modding groups can be publishers. As long as they set it up correctly, it should just work correctly, right? So there also needs to be some versioning and so on, right? So that they don't screw up in case the launcher is updating, then ideally we like gracefully update the format and so on, right? So try to make it robust and try to make it extensible and configurable so that like people can distribute things. So that means it needs to, like, in the long term. In the short term, we just want to support like the community patch, but in the long term, it needs to support any mods, add-ons, maps, anything else that you could install, right? And there can be different methods. So obviously the method that has been deployed so far is dumping the files into the game installation, right? Because that's how the game works. You need to put the big files there, and so that the game loads it, and you need to also put it into a load order so that it overrides the original game files. Now with the source code, we can change that. We can have another method of installation where we say, okay, we don't need to overwrite the retail game. We can provide a launch parameter to the game executable, which says, hey, these are the priority game files, and here's the retail installation. Pick this up and properly launch it with this kind of load order, right? So we have this freedom to build this, but this would be something that we would have to support in game code. We don't have this yet, but this is something that GenHub also needs to cater to, right? It needs to go into the direction of not messing with the retail installation, so the retail installation remains clean. I think that's exactly. that's important, but I think it can still have like this legacy mode, because there will be legacy mods that don't have a newer tech, and then we just use a legacy method like Contra, just dump the files in like they do in their launcher, and that would be good to go. But the mod authors, they can do it themselves. We don't do it. We just provide the functionality for it. Regarding game detection, you're right. It's in GenPatcher, all the stuff should already be in there. I think GenTool also has game detection stuff. Basically, it's just a matter of reading the correct registry keys. There's basically just a number of different variations, and as long as you don't have knowledge of all the variations, then you can implement it. Not a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I can also send you some .rec files that basically just sets it in the registry. So it's possible you can, like, on the fly, you can just change your registry keys to other formats, right? And then you can test it. And you can also, like, just copy, like, an installation you have and just copy it somewhere else and then just update the registry keys. So you can have different kind of installations, right? So for example, you can create different installations for different languages, for example, on your system. There's also, regarding UI, I think Sky Aero already mentioned, UI design is probably not a priority at this point. I think it's fine if we just make a mock-up, right? Just have, like, ugly buttons and just focus on the functionality. Just get that right. Don't worry too much about making it beautiful.
Oh no, I don't mind designing the app and whatnot. It's more about the flow of the UI, what which menu, what the menus do, and how certain things behave, like the version selection for different mods and whatnot. Not like the actual design, like the styling.
Okay.
Right?
The flow. Okay, that's a good question. Yeah.
I think initially what my experience is, and that this comes more from SaaS software, don't worry about the flow either. Just dump buttons and stuff in the UI. Once we have a working version, we go to somewhere in the community patch. I know there are people that design UI and UX in the community patch. We just dump it there. We say we need help with UI and UX design, and you're going to get loads of designs, including flows and stuff like that. Let them solve it because they're the experts. We're developers, so just dump the buttons somewhere and then let somebody else figure out how the flow works.
Another topic, I think it's also important to pay special attention to Game Ranger, because Game Ranger works in a special way where it wants to launch the game executable. So if you want to allow Game Ranger to launch the game, which it needs to, because it needs to inject itself. It needs to inject Game Ranger DLL into the game process. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So you need to, there's a source code for the proxy launcher. It's in our repository, and that gives you a template of how to simply delegate the call to the real application. And then what happens is you launch the game through Game Ranger, through the GenHub, and then you just, like, chain it to the real executable. And then while you chain, you can then, like, properly set up the game the way it's supposed to be set up, right? So it basically, the GenHub needs to have a mode to act as a proxy launcher. And then additionally, there's also we have a tool to build mods. It's called Mod Builder, and so we need to figure out how we incorporate, like, mod building with GenHub. So, like, does GenHub provide any functionality to assist in building mods, or does Mod Builder just generate files that then GenHub can use to understand how this mod is composed? Like, we need to, like, figure out how this is supposed to work. I don't have a clear answer to this yet, because Mod Builder in itself is also a work in progress. It doesn't have any functionality yet to publish a mod. Like, what it needs, like, so for example, it needs to check some of the files, and it probably also needs to be able to build data files and stuff like this. So right now, basically, the only thing it does is it takes all the source files and it puts it into the file formats that the game understands, but it doesn't do anything regarding publishing yet, right? But this needs to be closely tied with GenHub in some way. So either Mod Builder takes care of some publishing stuff, or GenHub itself takes care of publishing stuff. So Mod Builder does provide JSON files to configure, like, what how the mod is being built, right? And how our community page is being built then, right? So through these JSON files, the final format of the mod is understood. It's clear from there. And this needs to be worked into the publishing process somehow, right? So like all the files need to be checksummed so that like there's some integrity check, and we know the file sizes, and it can be zipped up, and all this kind of stuff. Anything else? One thing regarding the installation methods. Since someone said something about like, okay, add-on, is it compatible? I think maybe, so there are two ways, right? You can say, okay, this add-on is compatible with this mod by some deterministic check, right? So like you could check, for example, if there's a conflicting file in the big file that overwrites the file from the mod, and therefore it's deemed not compatible, right? You could do this, or like the GenHub could simply provide a field that the author sets and manually sets, okay, this add-on is compatible with this mod version and this mod version, or it's incompatible with this mod, right? So maybe there needs to be a mix of like checkings, figuring out, and like manual setup, and trusting that the author does his due diligence and tests it, right? And then sets like, so for example, if I create a control bar, then I can say, okay, it is compatible with the retail game, right? And then I could say, okay, it is not compatible with the community patch because it overwrites the control bar, and the control bar of the community patch, it adds stuff on top that is not available in the control bar version that I want to publish, right? So I would then mark it as incompatible with the community patch, right? So then, like, if that was offered in the mod, in the GenHub, then there would be like a conflict, and it would be deemed not compatible or would not even be listed, right? So I think it can be a mix of checking, like we can look into big files, we can check which files are colliding, or we can have a manual authoring of like, is it compatible or not. I think that were all my notes.
I think you said earlier you were concerned how we should help mod creators. We could possibly add a dev mode to the GenHub, so the mod makers can use the dev mode with extra features for them.
Is this about like how you mean like the mod builder, having the mod builder inside the GenHub right now? Or?
No, I mean, I think the most problematic part about creating the mod is they have to package it every time and give the Gen launcher, I don't know, a YAML file. We could specify a dev mode where they can create a YAML file with a file location instead of internet URL, and the GenHub takes the file from that location and acts as if it has downloaded the file, so they can test their mod easily.
I mean, sure. I think that's something we could discuss in the future, since it's probably not needed for the MVP right now. I think we should focus more on the first few steps before we start planning.
Yes, I was kind of giving a feedback to Zezon, but yes, we should start with basic stuff.
Yeah.
Can you organize the teams and asking?
Say again.
Can you organize the team? I mean, how should we get tasks and stuff like that?
Well, I can't. Setson can, I think. if you're talking about setting up teams and whatnot in GitHub and so on. Other than that, I think how it should actually work is we're creating issues and people can just fork and create pull requests, if that's your question.
Okay. How do we get what tasks are available?
Well, that's what we are going to have to set up.
Exactly.
We know what's we need to have a roadmap, which is what we just discussed, and we have some basic direction from Leggy and Arctic Dolphin, and we know we're going to work towards an MVP. So we need to figure out what needs to be in the MVP and break that up in smaller tasks. So that's the next steps. That's probably the next 1 or 2 weeks that we're gonna have to get those tasks into GitHub, and then people can say, "I'm gonna do this task," build it, make a PR, and have 1 or 2 people code review it. And we need to discuss that as well, how that process is gonna go. So that's another thing that needs to put into place is how the contributions are gonna work before we're even gonna accept contributions, because that's how these things go.
Yeah.
I'm happy to contribute to that. As I said earlier, I will be on holiday after this week, but that can be managed. I think we'll discuss more, especially Nils and me, to get these things set up. I don't know if I have all the permissions in GitHub.
Yeah, sure. We can just ask Arctic to set everything up for us.
Then we'll tag Arctic to help us to set up the GitHub, and I think we'll just get a few things going in terms of contributions, roadmaps, that kind of stuff, and then we can start putting tasks in.
Yeah.
And then other people can join in.
Yeah.
Does that sound
very
good?
nice?
Yeah,
it sounds good. Yeah.
Then we're gonna do it that way.
I can also give a demo of what I have so far. My build.
Say that again, please. I didn't quite understand what you said.
I can also give a demo of what I have so far.
Yeah. I mean, sure, if it fulfills any needs we have right now and for the MVP, then go for it.
Right, so I'm sharing my screen.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a little, because Niels said he doesn't have a lot of time. I think for tonight it's a little maybe too early for these times of demos. It would be nice if you could share your fork, for example, so people can have a look.
Sure.
Or we plan another meeting where you can.
I'm interested in seeing this now.
Oh, okay. Well, then we can do it.
So basically, there's a simple GitHub manager which gets workflows from the repository with the CI, and then you can pick up one of them and then install it like this. And if you have installed, you can either create a new profile.
Holy.
And then you can pick one of these base games or one of the commits here. Then you can add it. But I also have to set up like the game pass, which has the executable, or and the data pass, which I have to change to the 0-hour folder here. Then it basically launches the game. This is the alt-tab crash fix, I think. And as the game launches, it doesn't crash.
And
it's on the other screen, I know.
That's actually quite cool that you already have so much progress there. Like Iro said, it would be nice if you could share your fork, and then we can take that into consideration, into maybe merging a lot of that into the main branch already.
Sure, no worries.
Yeah. Is this based on the framework that's there on GenHub, or did you develop?
Yes, it's yours.
Okay.
I basically follow your fork here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it's easy to pick things apart and integrate. Cool.
Yep.
This looks really cool already. What does can you show the downloads and settings? What is that?
It doesn't really work as well. I have like a small bug. It doesn't get every workflow. It's usually supposed to get all of them, but I've changed some stuff and it broke. But it usually gets like the most recent workflows, and then you can search fix alt, and then it's you can either search by pull request or run request. It does like different API requests, but you need a GitHub token if you want to download them. That's the catch, because I couldn't download them unless I had access, and then you need a GitHub token to have public access.
Yeah,
And if you have downloaded, you can install.
I think it's pretty cool. It's probably nothing that the final user will use, but for developers, this looks pretty cool. What just testing, like let's say like QA testers want to fetch the same build, then they can just use this. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And
That's about it, actually.
What does settings do?
Nothing. It's just empty.
Okay. Yeah, I like it.
Will mods also be in the profiles?
Under what?
Mods, will they be on their profiles as well?
Most likely, yes. But we're first just trying normal executables and patches.
So when you click on add new profile, what happens?
It opens this window. We can choose
And
icons.
Yeah, and so how does it discover this content here?
It uses the game detection service for these three, and then the other ones.
No, I mean how did it discover the GitHub repository?
This GitHub.
Yeah. Is this
I have a GitHub. It's just a API request for this repository, and then there's an API request. Does it?
Yeah, it's probably hard coded right now.
Okay, no, I mean, where does it the URL for the super hackers repository? Is this like just hard coded or?
I have data models here, which I save like the repo owner, and then it returns this git flow based on. You can change it as well. It's not hard coded. It just gets this workflow file from the API here, and then based on.
But the URL is, I see it's in C# here, right? The stuff.
Yeah. This is basically your owner repo, and then gets the workflow. But this is just one data model.
Yeah, it's fine for now. Yeah.
And then it does here like runs or repo owner config, and then a workflow file, and then it gets depending on the page which API endpoint it reaches. Just API calls basically.
I think this is probably something that so the publisher basically he hands over like a configuration of like what contents he publishes, right? And then there could be like a field where we say, okay, like for devs there is this GitHub URL, and there it then can pull these GitHub builds, right? But it's probably nothing that is required to publish stuff. It's more like, for devs, like very specific.
Yeah, it's just another service and then an endpoint where you get the data from, or the executables. I just download every single artifact and then extract it, and then look for the general's keyword to find which executable it is.
That means that it's a bit inefficient because it needs to download the whole package, right? And there's all these tools and world builder inside, which may not be necessary, right?
Yes, because it's the.
I wonder if it would make sense to somehow split these artifacts, if that is possible, to have like an artifact for the game and then the artifacts for the tools, right?
Yeah, basically downloads one of these.
And this would also then be configurable, right? Because I guess like if someone makes their own repository, then they may have different artifacts, right? So it could be very custom to how these artifacts work.
Yes, these are configurable.
I will have to leave you guys now. I'm sorry. If you have any more question towards me, you can just tag me whenever you want in the launcher thread, and hopefully I react quick enough. If you have questions right now, well, I have 1 more minute. Other than that, I would leave you guys alone now and wish you a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Have a nice
Bye.
evening, and
Yeah, bye-bye.
we'll keep in contact.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
My, anything else we have to talk about regarding this?
I don't know if anyone wants to contribute something, wants to say.
Not really, no. I guess you need to check then how you can merge your progress into the GenHub repository. I mean, it looks great, like the way you have set it up already. Like it's interactable and it's beyond a simple mock-up, right? Whether this will be the final look of the tool, right, is another story. But if it's already usable, I think that's already good. Yeah. So I think one of the key features will be the publishing. I think this is something that should be worked on probably sooner than later, right? That a publisher, so we are Community Outpost is a publisher, that they can provide this configuration. So there needs to be thought into how this configuration is set up, how the format looks, and what can be done with it. And this then also plays into like all the setup for like this GitHub stuff that you put there, right?
I was like making a game manifest or a YAML or something that says all like. So just like a mock of most of these. I was messing with like configuration files because I have versions, profiles. I have different JSONs for them. And then it's still because some of them have GitHub artifacts that have also extra metadata that you want to include in the profiles or you want to include in the version metadata. Then how does your manifest file or processing or parsing of that file even look like? It's like so much information to go through and decide which ones are relevant.
Do you already have a sample JSON?
I use versions, something like this.
Yeah.
It's basic. This is more worked out. This stores like the more the GitHub artifacts if he has some information about them. It's just this plain JSON.
Okay, and did you generate it or is it hand assembled?
I have data models here in my here for my GitHub artifact. There's a data model here. It's built for the GitHub build itself, the repository config, the workflow itself, and then it gets them from here and builds a JSON.
Okay, but how do you get the data to build the JSON with?
Oh, it gets that from version service here. Game version server. No. No, wait, service. Which one was this? This one's wrong. I can't find it right now. Get version storage pass. It's somewhere.
Maybe you can also just explain it.
I don't remember where exactly I put it. It's this problem.
Okay.
Oh wait, I was scanning.
I'm a bit wondering, like, how would you generate stuff for, like, how, to describe a installation? Like how would you generate it? That's what I'm wondering. I guess if you would like create a folder and you dump all the, like, let's say you have a mod and you download it and you dump it in a folder, you could then see, okay, what files are in there and so what is part of it.
Yes, that's basically the problem I had as well, because I was detecting the versions from here where it downloads them in this directory. I download them in this like local, and then I have versions, then GitHub, and then the repository, and then I have artifact, and then I have like artifact and then a unique ID for that artifact. And I was thinking maybe if
Your mic
from
is
that, and then you do a search up depending on the identifier for the artifact. Only for me, it only gets this versions, this specific information, if it only does it from the GitHub downloader, because it downloads the artifact itself. It has the build info and it has all the workflow information. Then it can generate this. But if I have this just normally like this, and I don't have the version JSON, like if I remove this, it can still detect this because I have something for detecting the version, but it won't have the metadata regarding the build info, the workflow, and all the other stuff. So, like you said, populating that from just executable, it's going to also be a hard task of all the metadata. So you need a manifest or.
Yeah. So how is this? How do you get this data then?
This gets from the wait, this is GitHub service, I think. Yes. This one makes. I think this one makes it here. Because it creates workflow runs, it gets them here from the API and then creates a variable.
Okay, so you query data from GitHub API and then you create some local data out of it. I see.
And basically, that's why I had the data models to map them onto, or else I can work with them. And then I make the JSON file from them. But unless I go to the API, I can't get the information or metadata from that build.
But this is something that like is locally created now, so it's nothing that like a publisher would hand over. It's something that the launcher locally detects, right?
If the endpoint here, this URL, and you have this kind of JSON, because the JSON that I get, this is the artifact response, but it has a different. Can I get the endpoint?
But I mean, it has to be this way because we can't have a static publisher file that gives like outdated GitHub information. Right?
True.
So the GenHub has to detect the news content from the repository. So the way you do it is the right way. Yeah.
Or if like people have config files, they can maybe load the configuration and then GenHub can do the fetching of the data from online.
So I guess the publisher information would simply be, hey, this is a GitHub repository that belongs to this project, right? So community outposts, and then it has this repository and maybe this other repository, right? And then GenHub would like provide these artifacts then for this project then.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, nice work.
Let me just show you the file it looks like. I think it's this. Workflows? No. Yes, this is what you get back. Oh no, it's not a workflow file, ci.yaml. This is what you get back. Right. Let me make it nicer. Is it allowed? Oh, wait, did I get the correct file? I don't think I got the correct file. Oh, let me see. Oh yeah, this is, yeah. It gets like, these are the workflows, and each workflow has different runs, and it shows them here. The run number, the pull, whether the pull request created, and then it has like metadata about them as well here. The person who made it, pull request. And these are all workflows. It's a different workflow. It's a different workflow. Here. And this is just how I sorted out of it, all this information.
Yeah, looks good. All right, I will also jump out here. Thank you very much for the presentation and the talk. I wish you a
You're
great day or
welcome.
night. Bye-bye.
And thank you as well. Good night.